The blizzard had already claimed 3 wagons by the time Katherine Bennett's husband decided she was worth less than a bottle of whiskey and a warm bed at the saloon in Denver. He left her on the mountain pass between Georgetown and Empire, Colorado, in February of 1878, with nothing but the thin cotton dress on her back and boots that had holes worn clear through the soles. Katherine stumbled through snow that reached her knees, her dark hair plastered to her face by the ice and wind. She could not feel her fingers anymore. The cold had moved past pain into something worse, a numbness that made her clumsy and slow. She had been walking for hours, or maybe it was only minutes. Time had stopped meaning anything when the wagon disappeared around the bend, and she realized James was not coming back. He had finally done what he threatened every time he got drunk, which was every night since they left Missouri 6 months ago. She fell for the 3rd time and could not find the strength to rise. The snow felt almost warm now, which some distant part of her mind recognized as dangerous. She closed her eyes. At least it would be quiet. At least she would not have to hear James telling her she was worthless anymore. The sound of hooves crunching through snow barely registered. Katherine thought she might be dreaming when strong hands lifted her from the ground. She tried to open her eyes, but her lashes were frozen together. "Got you," a man's voice said. It was deep and steady, without the meanness she had grown accustomed to. "Stay with me now." She felt herself being lifted onto a horse, felt the warmth of a body behind her, and a heavy coat being wrapped around her shoulders. The horse began to move and she drifted in and out of consciousness, aware only of the arms holding her steady and the voice that kept talking to her, keeping her tethered to the world. "Not much further now. You are going to be all right. Can you tell me your name?" Katherine tried to speak, but her teeth were chattering too hard. "That is all right. Save your strength. I've got a cabin just over this ridge. We will get you warm." The cabin appeared through the swirling snow like something from a fever dream. It was small and sturdy, built from thick logs with smoke rising from a stone chimney. The man dismounted and pulled her down carefully, carrying her inside as if she weighed nothing at all. The warmth hit her like a physical thing, and she gasped. He set her down in a chair near the fire and immediately began working to remove her frozen boots. Katherine finally managed to open her eyes and look at her rescuer. He was young, maybe 25 or 26, with dark blonde hair that curled slightly at his collar and eyes the color of creek water in summer. His face was weathered from sun and wind but handsome in a rugged way, with a strong jaw covered in a few days' worth of stubble. He wore wool trousers and a thick flannel shirt with the sleeves rolled up, revealing muscled forearms. "My name is Yates Thornton," he said, glancing up at her as he peeled off one boot and then the other, his expression grim when he saw the holes in them. "You picked a hell of a day for a walk." "I did not pick it," Katherine managed through chattering teeth. "He left me." Something dark flashed across Yates's face, but he only nodded. "Your husband was. Good riddance then." He stood and moved to a chest in the corner, pulling out thick wool socks and a heavy blanket. "Can you manage these yourself, or do you need help? Your fingers look pretty bad." Katherine tried to take the socks, but her hands would not cooperate. Yates knelt down again and gently worked the socks onto her feet, then wrapped the blanket around her shoulders. He moved with practiced efficiency to the stove and poured something from a pot into a tin cup. "Beef broth," he said, pressing the warm cup into her hands and helping her guide it to her lips. "Drink it slow." The broth was rich and salty and the best thing Katherine had ever tasted. She took small sips while Yates busied himself hanging her wet coat near the fire and checking her fingers and toes for frostbite. "You were lucky I was checking my traps today," he said. Most folks have enough sense to stay inside during a storm like this. I told you I did not choose to be out there. Catherine's voice came out sharper than she intended. He pushed me out of the wagon and drove off. Yates was quiet for a moment, his jaw working. What is your name? Katherine Bennett. Kate. Well, Kate, you are safe now. That bastard will not find you here even if he comes looking, which I doubt he will. He stood and moved to the window, looking out at the storm. This is going to blow for at least another day or two. You are welcome to stay until it passes and you are strong enough to travel. Travel where? Kate heard the bitterness in her own voice. I have nothing. No money, no family, nowhere to go. Yates turned back to her, his expression thoughtful. Then I guess you will figure that out when the time comes. For now, you need to rest and warm up. You can have the bed, I will take the floor. I cannot take your bed. You can and you will, I insist. His tone left no room for argument. When is the last time you ate a real meal? Kate had to think about it. 2 days ago, maybe 3. Yates shook his head and moved to the stove, pulling out a pan. I have got some salt pork and beans. Nothing fancy, but it will fill your belly. Katherine watched him work, still not quite believing this was real. Men like James did not just help people without wanting something in return. She waited for Yates to make his demands, to tell her what he expected in exchange for his kindness. But he only cooked in silence, occasionally glancing over to make sure she was still drinking the broth. When the food was ready, he handed her a plate piled high with beans and pork and a thick slice of bread. Kate ate slowly at first, then faster as her stomach woke up and demanded more. Yates sat at the small table with his own plate, watching the storm outside the window. How long have you lived here? Kate asked between bites. About 2 years. I work a claim up in the hills panning for gold. Do not strike it rich, but I make enough to get by. It is quiet. I like the quiet. You do not get lonely. Yates smiled slightly. Sometimes. But I prefer my own company to most folks I have met. Present situation accepted. Kate felt her cheeks warm despite the cold that still clung to her bones. Thank you for helping me. You did not have to. Yes, I did. Yates met her eyes across the table. What kind of man would I be if I left someone to freeze to death? Besides, you have everything you need now. Warm place to sleep, food in your belly, and time to figure out your next step. The words settled over Kate like another blanket. She wanted to believe him, but everything she had learned in her 22 years told her that nothing came without a price. Still, Yates seemed genuine. There was no calculation in his eyes, no hidden agenda in his expression. Just honest concern and a matter-of-fact kindness that felt foreign after so many months with James. After they finished eating, Yates showed her the bed in the corner of the one-room cabin. It had a thick feather mattress and several heavy quilts. Kate's entire body ached with exhaustion, but she hesitated. What about you? Where will you sleep? Yates gestured to a bedroll already laid out near the fire. I have slept on worse. Get some rest, Kate. We can talk more when the storm passes. Kate climbed under the quilts, still wearing her dress since she had nothing else. The bed was impossibly soft and warm. She watched Yates move around the cabin, banking the fire and checking that the door was secure against the wind. He moved with an easy confidence, comfortable in his space. When he finally settled onto the bedroll with a book, Kate let her eyes drift closed. She woke several times during the night, disoriented and afraid, before remembering where she was. Each time, she could see Yates silhouetted by the firelight, keeping watch. It should not have comforted her as much as it did. Morning brought no relief from the storm. If anything, the wind howled louder and the snow fell thicker. Kate woke to find Yates already up, cooking something that smelled like bacon over the stove. She sat up slowly, wincing at the soreness in her muscles. "How are you feeling?" Yates asked without turning around. "Sore, but warm." Kate looked down at her hands. The color had returned to her fingers, though they still ached. "Better than yesterday. Good. That is good." He brought her a plate of bacon and eggs with more of that thick bread. "We need to check for frostbite later. Make sure you are not going to lose any fingers or toes." The casual way he said it made Kate realize how close she had come to death. She looked at Yates more carefully in the morning light. He had changed into a clean shirt, dark blue flannel that brought out his eyes. His hair was damp like he had washed it. He caught her looking and raised an eyebrow. "What?" "Nothing. Why are you being so kind to me?" "You do not know me. I could be anyone." Yates sat down across from her with his own plate. "You could be, but you are not. You are someone who got dealt a bad hand and needed help. Simple as that. Nothing is ever simple. Maybe not where you come from. But up here in these mountains, things are pretty straightforward. You help folks when they need it because someday you might need help too. That is just how it works." Kate wanted to believe in that kind of simplicity, but years with James had taught her differently. Still, she could not deny that Yates had already proven himself different. He had not tried to take advantage of her vulnerability, had not made any demands or inappropriate advances. He treated her with a respect she had almost forgotten existed. They spent the day trapped inside by the storm, and Kate learned more about Yates Thornton. He had come west from Kentucky after his parents died of cholera, looking for a fresh start and a chance to make his own way. He had tried his hand at various things, working cattle drives and serving as a deputy in a mining camp, before deciding he preferred the solitude of prospecting. He read books, which surprised Kate. Most of the men she knew could barely write their own names. "My mother was a schoolteacher," Yates explained when Kate commented on the small shelf of books near his bed. "She made sure I got educated before she died. Said a man who could read had the whole world at his fingertips." She sounds like she was a wise woman. She was. Yates's expression softened with memory. "She would have liked you, I think. She always said you could tell the measure of a person by how they handled hardship. You did not give up out there in that snow. You kept walking even when you had every reason to just lay down and quit." "I am not sure that makes me strong. Maybe just stubborn. Stubborn is good. Stubborn keeps you alive." Kate found herself smiling, really smiling for the first time in months. Yates smiled back and something warm unfurled in her chest that had nothing to do with the fire. As the day wore on, they talked more. Yates asked about her life and Kate found herself telling him things she had never spoken aloud. About growing up in Missouri as the youngest of 6 children. About how her father had arranged her marriage to James, because there was not enough food to feed everyone and James had promised to take care of her. About how those promises had turned to lies the moment they crossed into Kansas, how James drank and gambled and blamed Kate for every misfortune that befell them. "He said I was cursed," Kate whispered, staring into her cup of coffee. "Said I brought bad luck everywhere I went." "That is horseshit," Yates said flatly. "Pardon my language, but it is. A man like that always needs someone to blame for his own failings. You were convenient, nothing more." The certainty in his voice made Kate want to cry. She blinked back tears and changed the subject, asking Yates about his gold claim. He brightened and started telling her about the mountain, about the vein he was working and his hopes for the spring thaw. His enthusiasm was infectious, and Kate found herself genuinely interested. By the time they went to bed that second night, Kate felt more like herself than she had in over a year. She lay under the quilts, listening to the storm and the crackle of the fire, and let herself imagine a different future. One where she did not have to be afraid all the time. One where she could be valued for something other than her usefulness as a punching bag. The storm finally broke on the third day, leaving the world buried under 3 feet of fresh snow that sparkled in the bright sunshine. Yates ventured out first, digging a path to the lean to where his horse and mule were sheltered. Kate watched from the window, then forced herself to stand and help when he came back inside. "Can you handle a shovel?" Yates asked. "I can learn." He showed her how to clear snow from the roof of the lean-to and the path to the well. The work was hard and Kate's muscles screamed in protest, but it felt good to be useful, to be doing something instead of just sitting and waiting for life to happen to her. When they came back inside for lunch, both flushed and breathless from the cold, Yates studied her carefully. "You are looking stronger. Color is back in your cheeks." "I feel stronger. You have been feeding me well. Speaking of which, we need to talk about what comes next." Yates set down his cup and leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "The snow will be passable in a few days. You said you have nowhere to go, but you must have thought about it some." Kate had thought about it. She had thought about little else during the long hours of the storm. "I could try to find work somewhere. A town with a hotel or boarding house that needs help, but I do not have money to get anywhere or to live until I find a position." "What about going back to Missouri? To your family?" "No." Kate's voice was firm. "My father made his choice when he married me off to James. I will not go crawling back there to be another mouth to feed." Yates nodded slowly. "All right, so you need money and a place to stay while you figure things out." "Yes." "Which is why I need to impose on your hospitality a bit longer if you will allow it." Kate straightened her spine, trying for dignity despite wearing a dress that was torn and stained. "I can work. I can cook and clean, tend animals, whatever you need. I will earn my keep until I can afford to move on." She expected Yates to protest or to lay out conditions. Instead, he just looked at her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. "You do not have to earn anything, Kate. You are welcome to stay as long as you need. But if working makes you feel better about it, I will not stop you. Lord knows this place could use a woman's touch. I am not much for housekeeping." Relief flooded through Kate so intensely her knees went weak. "Thank you. I promise I will not be a burden." "You are not a burden. You are company. And honestly, it is nice to have someone to talk to besides the mule." That made Kate laugh, and Yates grinned in response. The tension in the room eased and they finished their lunch in comfortable conversation. Over the next week, they fell into a routine. Yates would check his traps and work on maintaining his equipment while Kate cleaned the cabin thoroughly, organized his supplies, and cooked proper meals. She mended his clothes, discovering that he had been sewing his own tears with thick, uneven stitches that made her shake her head. She baked bread using his stores of flour, filling the cabin with a smell that made Yates close his eyes and smile. "I have not had fresh bread like this since my mother died," he said, tearing into a warm slice slathered with butter. "You have a gift. It is just bread." "It is not just anything. Do not diminish what you are good at, Kate. That is what men like your husband do. You do not have to do it to yourself." The words struck deep. Kate realized she had been apologizing for herself, minimizing her skills and contributions out of habit. With James, any sign of pride had been met with mockery or worse. But Yates seemed genuinely appreciative of everything she did, always thanking her and noticing the small changes she made to his home. As the days passed, Kate became more comfortable. She borrowed one of Yates's spare shirts to sleep in since her dress was falling apart. He did not comment on it, just added it to the list of supplies he would need to get next time he went to town. She learned to anticipate his moods, to know when he needed silence and when he wanted conversation. He learned the same about her, giving her space when the memories got too heavy and making her laugh when she got too serious. It was during the second week that Kate admitted to herself She was falling for Yates Thornton. It happened when she woke in the middle of the night to use the chamber pot and found him asleep in his bedroll, one arm thrown over his head, his face peaceful in the firelight. He looked younger when he slept, vulnerable in a way he never allowed during the day. Kate felt a fierce surge of protectiveness followed by a longing so intense it made her chest ache. She wanted this to be her life, not as a temporary guest or someone earning her keep, but as someone who belonged here, with him. The realization terrified her. She had just escaped one marriage. The last thing she should want was to tie herself to another man, no matter how kind he seemed. But Yates was not James. Yates was nothing like James. He was patient and thoughtful and treated her like she had value beyond her usefulness. He made her feel safe. Kate tried to push the feelings down, to focus on practical matters. She would save the small amount of money Yates gave her for helping around the cabin. Even though she protested, she did not need payment. She would eventually have enough to go to one of the bigger towns, maybe Central City or even Denver, and start fresh. That was the plan. That was what made sense. But then Yates would do something like bring her wildflowers he found on one of his walks, or read aloud from one of his books in the evening, his deep voice filling the cabin with stories of adventure and romance, and Kate's resolve would crumble a little more. February turned into March. The snow began to melt, and the days grew longer. Yates took Kate with him to check his sluice boxes on the claim, showing her how to pan for gold in the icy creek water. She was terrible at it, but he never made her feel stupid, just patiently demonstrated the technique over and over until she found her first tiny flake of gold. "I found one." Kate held up the pan triumphantly. Yates laughed, a full, genuine sound that made her heart skip. "You did." "Natural prospector. Give it another year and you will be rich." "Somehow I doubt that. You never know. Gold turns up in the strangest places." They were kneeling side by side in the creek, close enough that their shoulders bumped. Kate was acutely aware of Yates's warmth, the way his hands moved with such confidence through the gravel and water. She looked up and found him watching her, his expression soft. "What?" she asked, suddenly self-conscious. "Nothing, just, you look happy. It is good to see." "I am happy. I did not think I would ever be happy again, but I am, because of you." The words hung between them. Yates's expression shifted into something Kate could not quite read. He opened his mouth like he was going to say something, then seemed to think better of it and looked away. "We should head back. It is getting cold." The moment passed, but Kate felt its significance. Something was changing between them, a shift in the air like the smell of rain before a storm. She did not know if Yates felt it too, but she hoped he did. That night, Kate lay awake long after Yates had fallen asleep. She stared at the rough beams of the ceiling and tried to sort through her tangled feelings. She was legally still married to James, even though he had abandoned her. She had no idea where he had gone or if he was even still alive. Did that matter? Should she try to get a divorce, assuming such a thing was even possible for a woman with no money or resources? And what did Yates want? He had been nothing but kind and respectful, but did that kindness extend to romantic feelings? Or did he see her as a responsibility, someone to help but not to love? Kate did not think she could bear it if she confessed her feelings only to be rejected. Better to stay silent and keep what she had than to risk losing everything. But staying silent became harder as March stretched on. Yates had to go into Empire for supplies, and he asked Kate if she wanted to come along. She almost said yes before remembering that James might still be in the area. The last thing she needed was to run into her husband in town. "I will stay here," Kate said. "But I can give you a list of things I need. Fabric for a new dress, needles and thread, maybe some ribbon if it is not too expensive." Yates waved off her concern about money. Get what you need. You have earned it 10 times over. He left early on a crisp morning, promising to be back before dark. Kate spent the day cleaning and cooking, trying not to worry. But as the sun began to set and Yates had not returned, anxiety crept in. What if something had happened to him? What if James was in town and had somehow found out where she was staying? She was pacing by the window when she finally heard hoofbeats. Kate rushed to the door, relief flooding through her when she saw Yates riding up with his mule in tow, both animals loaded with supplies. "You are back." I was starting to worry. Yates dismounted and started unloading packs. "Sorry, took longer than I expected. Had to go to 3 different stores to find everything on your list, but I got it all." He handed her a bundle wrapped in brown paper. Kate opened it to find several yards of beautiful dark blue calico fabric, plus thread, needles, buttons, and a length of white lace that must have cost more than everything else combined. "Yates, this is too much. I cannot accept all this." "You can and you will. A woman needs a decent dress. Besides, I want to see what you can make with it. You are always talking about how you used to sew before." "Well, before James. Before everything went wrong." Kate held the fabric to her chest, overwhelmed by the gesture. "Thank you. This is incredibly kind." "It is not kind, it is practical. Now help me get the rest of this stuff inside before the mule decides to eat all the grain." They worked together to unload and store the supplies. Yates had bought enough food to last them well into spring, plus new tools and equipment for his prospecting work. He had also brought a newspaper from Denver, which they read together after dinner. The newspaper was dated March 15, 1878, and was full of stories about the mining boom and the coming railroad expansion. There was also a notice about a circuit judge who would be in Empire the first week of April to hear cases and settle legal matters. Kate read that section twice, her mind working. A judge could grant divorces. She could be free of James legally, not just practically. But the thought of standing before a judge and explaining what had happened, admitting that her husband had thrown her away like garbage, made her stomach turn. "Something wrong?" Yates asked, noticing her expression. "No, just thinking." Kate folded the paper and set it aside. "Did you hear any news about anyone looking for a missing woman? Or a man named James Bennett?" "No. Why? Are you worried he might come back?" "Not worried exactly, just wondering. It seems strange that he would just leave and not even ask questions." Yates's expression darkened. "I asked around carefully. No one has reported anyone missing, and there is no James Bennett registered at any of the hotels or boarding houses in Empire or Georgetown. If he was there, he is long gone now." The information should have relieved Kate, but instead it made her angry. James could not even be bothered to pretend to look for her. She had been that worthless to him. "Good," Kate said finally. "I hope he froze to death." "Kate, I mean it. After everything he did, everything he put me through, he deserves worse than freezing. But I will settle for never seeing him again." Yates reached across the table and covered her hand with his. It was the first time he had touched her beyond helping her when she was injured. His hand was warm and calloused and strong. "You will never have to see him again. I promise you that. If he shows up here, he will deal with me first." The protective edge in Yates's voice sent warmth flooding through Kate. She turned her hand over, lacing her fingers with his. Yates looked down at their joined hands, then back up at her face. Something shifted in his expression, a wall coming down. "Kate, I need to tell you something." Her heart started pounding. "What?" Damn, I am not good at this." Yates ran his free hand through his hair, looking uncharacteristically nervous. "These past weeks with you here, they have been the best I've had in years, maybe ever. You make everything better. The food tastes better. The cabin feels like a home instead of just a place to sleep. I find myself looking forward to coming back from the claim just so I can see your face and hear what you have to say. And I know the timing is terrible and you probably do not feel the same way, but I needed you to know that I care about you, a lot more than I should." Kate's breath caught. She stared at Yates, seeing the vulnerability in his eyes, the fear that she would reject him. She squeezed his hand. "The timing is not terrible, and I do feel the same way. I tried not to. I tried to convince myself I was just grateful that it was not real. But it is real, Yates. You make me feel things I did not know I could feel. Safe and valued and maybe even beautiful, which is ridiculous because I know I look like something the cat dragged in." "You are beautiful," Yates said firmly. "You were beautiful even half frozen in the snow, but now you are stunning. And it is not just how you look, it is who you are. You are strong and brave and smart, and you make me want to be better." They were both standing now, moving around the table toward each other. Yates cupped Kate's face in his hands, his touch gentle. "Can I kiss you?" he asked. "Please." The kiss was soft and careful, nothing like the rough, demanding kisses James had forced on her. Yates kissed like he was savoring something precious, like he had all the time in the world. Kate melted into him, her hands gripping his shirt, her heart racing. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathing hard. Yates rested his forehead against hers. "I have wanted to do that for weeks," he admitted. "I wish you had done it sooner." He laughed and kissed her again, deeper this time. Kate felt like she was falling and flying at the same time, untethered and free. When Yates pulled back, his eyes were dark with emotion. "We should probably talk about this, about what it means." Kate nodded, even though talking was the last thing she wanted to do. They sat back down, still holding hands across the table. "I am still married," Kate said quietly. "Technically. Even though James abandoned me, we never dissolved the marriage legally. That can be fixed. There is a judge coming to Empire next month. We could petition for a divorce on grounds of abandonment. It should be straightforward given the circumstances." "And then what? Assuming I can get a divorce, what happens next?" Yates met her eyes steadily. "Then I would like to court you properly. Take you to town for dinner, maybe go to a dance if there is one. Show you off to everyone and let them know you are spoken for. And eventually, if you will have me, I would like to marry you. Make this arrangement permanent." Kate felt tears prick her eyes. "You want to marry me? Even though I come with nothing but trouble and bad memories?" "You brought yourself, Kate. That is everything. And I meant what I said that first day. You have everything you need now, including me if you want me. I want you. I have wanted you almost from the beginning. I was just too scared to admit it. You do not have to be scared anymore. Not of me, not of the future, not of anything. We will figure it out together." They sealed the promise with another kiss, and Kate felt the last of her fear melt away. She had been left in the snow with nothing, abandoned and alone. But Yates had found her and shown her that she did have everything she needed, strength she did not know she possessed, the ability to start over, and now, someone who loved her for exactly who she was. The next month passed in a blur of happiness. Kate spent her days sewing her new dress and helping Yates with his work on the claim. She learned to cook game, to preserve meat, to read the weather in the shape of the clouds. Yates taught her to shoot, insisting she needed to know how to protect herself if he was ever away and something happened. "I do not like guns," Kate protested when he brought out the rifle. "You do not have to like them. You just have to know how to use them. Bears and mountain lions do not care if you are uncomfortable." He was patient as he showed her how to load and aim, standing behind her with his arms around hers to help steady the rifle. Kate told herself she was concentrating on his instructions and not on the feel of his body against hers. She missed the first 6 shots spectacularly before finally hitting the target, a knot in a tree trunk about 30 yards away. "I did it," she exclaimed. "You did. Try again. See if it was luck or skill." It was mostly luck, but with practice Kate got better. She would never be a sharpshooter, but Yates was right that she needed to know the basics. The mountains could be dangerous, especially for a woman alone, not that Kate planned to be alone anymore. She and Yates had talked long into the night about their future, making plans and dreaming together. He wanted to work the claim for another few years, save up enough money to buy a ranch in a valley he had seen down near Palisade. Kate wanted to have a garden and maybe some chickens, a real home where they could put down roots. "We could have children," Yates said one night, his voice quiet. They were sitting outside the cabin watching the stars, wrapped in blankets against the chill. "I would like children someday, if you would." Kate had not thought about children in a long time. James had not wanted them, said he could barely afford to keep her fed, much less a baby. But with Yates, the idea was not terrifying. It was something to look forward to. "I would like that. Maybe not right away, but someday. A son with your eyes, or a daughter with your stubbornness." Kate elbowed him gently. "I am not stubborn. You are incredibly stubborn. It is one of the things I love about you." It was the first time either of them had said the word love outright. Kate turned to look at Yates, seeing the truth of it written all over his face. "I love you too," she whispered. "I did not think I would ever love anyone, but I love you." Yates kissed her under the stars, and Kate thought her heart might burst from the fullness of it all. The first week of April arrived, and with it, the need to go to Empire and face the judge. Kate had finished her dress just in time, a beautiful creation in dark blue calico with the white lace at the collar and cuffs. Yates had bought her new boots as well, sturdy leather ones that fit properly and would keep her feet dry. When she dressed that morning, pinning her hair up carefully, she barely recognized herself. She looked like a respectable woman, not someone who had been left to die in the snow. "You look beautiful," Yates said when she emerged from behind the privacy screen she had hung in one corner. He was dressed in his best clothes too, dark trousers and a clean white shirt with a vest. He had shaved and gotten his hair cut, making him look less like a prospector and more like a gentleman. "You do not look bad yourself," Kate managed, suddenly nervous. "Are you ready for this?" "As ready as I will ever be. Let us go before I lose my nerve." The ride into Empire took several hours. They talked to distract themselves, pointing out landmarks and discussing what they would do after the hearing. Yates had already sent letters to the judge's office and the sheriff, explaining the situation and providing what details he knew about James Bennett. There was a chance James would be there, summoned by the court, but Yates thought it unlikely. Men like him do not respond to court summons. They run. "What if he does show up? What if he tries to stop the divorce? Then I will handle it. You just focus on telling the truth. The judge will see reason." Empire was a bustling mining town, bigger than Kate had expected. They left the horses at a livery and walked to the courthouse, a substantial building made of brick. Kate's palms were sweating despite the cool air. Inside, a clerk directed them to a waiting room where several other people sat, all looking nervous or annoyed. Kate and Yates found seats and waited. And waited. The court system moved slowly, it seemed. It was nearly noon before their names were called. Judge Horatio Warren was an older man with steel gray hair and shrewd eyes. He listened as Kate gave her testimony, her voice shaking at first but growing stronger as she told the story of being left in the snow. Yates corroborated what he could, explaining how he had found her and the condition she had been in. The judge asked pointed questions about James, about their marriage, about whether Kate had tried to find her husband after recovering. "No, Your Honor," Kate said firmly. "I did not look for him because I did not want to find him. He made his choice when he left me to die. I am only here to make that choice legal." Judge Warren studied her for a long moment. "Mrs. Bennett, I am granting your petition for divorce on the grounds of abandonment and cruelty. You are free to remarry should you choose. Your husband will be notified of the judgment should he ever surface. But in the meantime, you are dissolved from all legal obligations to him. I am also issuing a warrant for Mr. Bennett's arrest on charges of attempted murder. If he is located, he will face trial." Relief crashed over Kate so intensely she thought she might faint. Yates's hand found hers and squeezed. "Thank you, Your Honor," Kate whispered. "You are a brave woman, Mrs. Bennett. Or should I say, Miss Bennett, take care of yourself." They left the courthouse in a daze. Kate could not quite believe it was over, that she was free. Yates led her to a restaurant and ordered them both a celebratory meal, steak and potatoes with apple pie for dessert. They ate slowly, savoring the food and the moment. "How does it feel?" Yates asked. "Strange. Good, but strange." "Like I am someone new." "You are someone new. Katherine Bennett, free woman. What are you going to do with all that freedom?" Kate smiled across the table at him. "I am going to let a very handsome prospector court me properly, starting right now." "Is that so? Well, I better make it good then." After lunch, Yates took Kate to the general store and bought her a cameo brooch, delicate and beautiful. He pinned it to her collar himself, his fingers gentle. "It is too much," Kate protested. "It is not enough. I wish I could buy you diamonds and silk dresses. Someday I will." "I do not need diamonds. I just need you." They spent the afternoon walking around Empire, looking in shop windows and watching the bustle of the mining town. Yates introduced Kate as his intended to everyone they met, pride clear in his voice. Kate blushed but stood tall, accepting congratulations and good wishes. As the sun began to set, they collected their horses and started the ride back to the cabin. Kate felt lighter than air, free in a way she had never been. The future stretched out before her, full of possibility. "Yates," she said as they rode side by side. "Thank you for everything, for saving my life, for showing me I was worth saving. I will never be able to repay you. You already have. You gave me something to live for besides just existing day to day. You gave me hope." They rode in comfortable silence the rest of the way home. Home. Kate loved that she could call it that now. The cabin had become hers as much as Yates's, filled with evidence of her presence. The curtains she had sewn, the herbs drying from the rafters, the quilt she was making from scraps of fabric. That night, they sat outside and watched the stars again, wrapped in blankets and each other. Yates kissed her with an intensity that made Kate's head spin. "I want to marry you soon," he said against her lips. "I do not want to wait months or do things slow. Is that too fast? Not for me. I want the same thing. I want to be your wife." "Next month, then." Judge Warren said he would be back through Empire in May. "We could get married then, make it legal and proper." "Yes. Absolutely yes." They sealed the promise with more kisses, and Kate thought about how much her life had changed in just 3 months. She had gone from hopeless and abandoned to loved and cherished. All because Yates Thornton had been checking his traps the day she nearly died. April passed in a flurry of preparations. Kate sewed a dress suitable for a wedding, cream-colored with tiny blue flowers embroidered around the hem. Yates worked his claim harder than ever, determined to have enough money to make their wedding day special. He bought rings from a traveling peddler, simple gold bands that they sized to fit. They invited the few neighbors within riding distance, other prospectors and homesteaders who had become friendly with Yates over the years. News of the wedding spread, and people Kate had never met promised to come, eager for any excuse to celebrate. The night before they were set to leave for Empire and the wedding, Yates pulled Kate close. "Are you sure about this? About me? You have only known me a few months. Maybe you should take more time." "I am sure. I was sure when you found me in the snow and told me I had everything I needed. You were right, even though I did not believe it then. I do now. I am going to spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret this. I know you will. That is why I am not afraid. The wedding day was perfect, clear and warm with wildflowers blooming on the hillsides. They rode into Empire early, both dressed in their finest. Judge Warren performed the ceremony in his chambers with the clerk and sheriff as witnesses. Kate spoke her vows with tears in her eyes, overcome by the enormity of the moment. Yates's voice was steady and sure, promising to love and honor her all his days. When the judge pronounced them married, Yates kissed his bride with such enthusiasm that the sheriff had to clear his throat pointedly. Kate laughed against Yates's lips, happier than she had ever been. They had a reception at the hotel dining room, paid for by Yates and attended by 24 people. There was music and dancing, food and whiskey. Kate danced with her new husband until her feet hurt, laughing at his attempts to remember the steps. They were terrible dancers, both of them, but it did not matter. They were together, and that was all that counted. As the evening wound down, they said their goodbyes and rode back to the cabin, now officially man and wife. Yates carried Kate over the threshold, kissing her as he set her down. "Welcome home, Mrs. Thornton. It sounds strange, good but strange. You will get used to it. You have the rest of your life to get used to it." That night, they consummated their marriage with a tenderness that made Kate weep. Yates treated her like she was precious, taking his time and making sure she felt safe and loved. It was nothing like her experiences with James, nothing like she had feared. It was beautiful and right and everything she had hoped for. Afterward, lying tangled together in the bed they would now share, Kate traced patterns on Yates's chest. "I want to tell you something," she said softly. "What is it? When you found me in the snow, when you said I had everything I needed, I thought you were crazy. I had nothing. I was dying. But you were right. I had myself, my own strength that I did not know I had, and then I had you. You were right all along." Yates kissed her forehead. "We had each other. That is all anyone really needs." Spring turned to summer and the cabin became a true home. Kate planted a garden that flourished in the mountain soil, producing vegetables that she canned and stored for winter. Yates's claim finally paid off in June when he found a substantial vein of gold, enough to give them financial security for years. They talked seriously about moving to Palisade and starting a ranch. Yates made a trip down to look at land, coming back full of excitement about a property he had found. 200 acres with water rights, good grass for cattle, and a view of the mountains that took his breath away. "It is perfect, Kate. You will love it. There is even a house already built, small but solid. We could move in by fall if we decide to buy it." Kate wanted to see it herself before making such a big decision, so in July they made the trip together. It took 4 days of travel, down through the mountains and into the warmer valley. Palisade was a small farming community, quiet and peaceful. The land Yates wanted to buy was everything he had described and more. Kate stood in the middle of the property, turning slowly to take it all in. She could see their future here. Cattle grazing, children playing, a real life built on something solid. "Let us do it," she said. "Let us buy it and make it ours." They made the purchase in early August, signing papers and making arrangements to move before winter set in. The next weeks were a whirlwind of packing and preparing, saying goodbye to the cabin that had been Kate's sanctuary. She felt a pang leaving it behind, but Yates reminded her they were not leaving the memories, just carrying them forward. "We will always have this place," he said as they loaded the last of their belongings onto the wagon. "Where we fell in love, where we started our life together, but we are ready for the next chapter." The move to Palisade went smoothly. They settled into the small ranch house, making improvements and adjustments. Yates bought a small herd of cattle to start with, planning to expand over time. Kate set up her kitchen and bedroom, hanging curtains and arranging furniture until everything felt right. Their nearest neighbors, the Wilson family, came calling a week after they arrived. Margaret Wilson was a warm, practical woman in her 40s, with 5 children ranging from 16 down to 3. She and Kate became fast friends, with Margaret teaching Kate the specific challenges of farming in the valley. "You have a good man there," Margaret said one afternoon as they sat on Kate's porch snapping beans. "Yates speaks of you like you hung the moon. I feel the same about him. I know people probably think we rushed into marriage, but it was right for us. Anyone with eyes can see how much you love each other. Do not pay mind to gossips. Live your life and be happy." Kate took the advice to heart. She and Yates built their life day by day, working side by side. The ranch prospered under their care. They added chickens and pigs, expanded the garden, built a larger barn. Yates proved to be a natural cattleman, and Kate discovered she had a gift for managing money and planning for the future. In December, a year after they met, Kate realized she was pregnant. She told Yates on Christmas morning, watching his face transform with joy, "Are you sure?" "As sure as I can be. Margaret thinks I am due in July." Yates pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. "We are going to have a baby. I cannot believe it. Are you happy? Is this what you want?" "It is exactly what I want. A family with you. Our own little life." The pregnancy was not easy. Kate was sick for the first few months, barely able to keep food down. Yates hovered worriedly until Kate finally snapped at him to stop treating her like she was made of glass. But even during the hard days, Kate was grateful. She was bringing a child into a home filled with love, so different from her own childhood. Margaret proved invaluable, sharing her wisdom from 5 pregnancies. She helped Kate prepare clothes and blankets for the baby, showed her what supplies to gather, eased her fears about childbirth. "You are strong," Margaret assured her. "You survived being left in a blizzard. You can survive this." The baby came on a hot July night in 1879, after 12 hours of hard labor. Yates paced outside while Margaret and her oldest daughter Sarah attended Kate. When the baby finally arrived, squalling and red-faced, Margaret cleaned him up and placed him in Kate's arms. "You have a son," she said with a smile, "healthy and strong just like his mother." Yates was allowed back inside, and the expression on his face when he saw his son made Kate cry all over again. He sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the tiny bundle in wonder. "He is perfect. You are perfect." "I do not deserve this." "Yes, you do. We both do." They named him Joshua Yates Thornton, calling him Josh from the start. He had his father's eyes and his mother's dark hair, and from the beginning he was the center of their world. Yates proved to be a devoted father, getting up in the night to walk with Josh when he fussed, changing diapers without complaint, singing off-key lullabies that made Kate smile. Life settled into a new rhythm. The ranch continued to grow, profitable enough that they could afford to hire help during busy seasons. Kate joined the ladies' auxiliary at the church, making friends and becoming part of the community. Yates served on the town council, respected for his level head and fair judgment. 2 years after Josh was born, Kate gave birth to a daughter they named Sarah, after Margaret's daughter who had become like a sister to Kate. Sarah was a quiet baby, content to watch the world with solemn gray eyes. Then came another son, Thomas, loud and demanding and full of energy from the moment he entered the world. The house they had thought was small proved elastic, expanding to accommodate their growing family. Yates added rooms, building with his own hands. Kate kept the household running, juggling children and cooking and the million tasks that came with ranch life. Through it all, Their love only deepened. Yates still looked at Kate like she was the most amazing thing he had ever seen. Kate still felt her heart skip when Yates came in from working the cattle, his shirt dusty and his smile bright. They made time for each other, stealing moments alone when the children were asleep, still talking and laughing like they had in those early days in the cabin. "You ever regret it?" Kate asked one night as they sat on the porch watching the stars. "Taking me in that day, your life would have been simpler without me." Yates turned to her, his expression serious. "I have never regretted it for one second. Finding you was the best thing that ever happened to me." "You and our children are everything, Kate. Everything. You saved my life. No, we saved each other. I was just existing before you. You gave me a reason to live, not just survive. You have given me everything." Kate leaned against her husband, content. She thought about that day in the snow, about how close she had come to giving up. If Yates had checked his traps a different day, if he had gone a different direction, she would have died there. But he had found her, and he had been right from the very beginning. She did have everything she needed. The strength to survive, the courage to start over, and now a life filled with love and purpose and the family she had always dreamed of. The years continued to pass, each one bringing new joys and challenges. Josh grew into a serious boy who loved helping his father with the cattle. Sarah was gentle and kind, with a gift for growing things that made the ranch gardens flourish. Thomas was the wild card, always getting into mischief and making everyone laugh with his antics. In 1885, Kate gave birth to their fourth and final child, a daughter they named Lucy. She came as a surprise when Kate was 31, and Yates joked that she would keep them young running after her. Lucy was a perfect blend of both her parents, stubborn and loving and full of life. The ranch prospered beyond their wildest dreams. Yates expanded their herd and started breeding horses as well, building a reputation for quality stock. Kate took over the business side entirely, managing accounts and negotiating contracts with a shrewdness that impressed even the men who had initially dismissed her. Palisade grew around them, transforming from a small farming community into a thriving town with a railroad stop and a main street full of businesses. The Thorntons were respected members of the community, known for their generosity and fairness. They donated land for a school and helped fund the church building. When hard times hit other families, they were the first to offer help. Josh went off to Denver at 18 to study law, determined to help people who could not help themselves. Sarah married a young teacher and settled nearby, giving Kate her first grandchild before Kate turned 40. Thomas joined his father on the ranch, proving to have an even better head for cattle than Yates. And Lucy grew into a spirited young woman with her mother's determination and her father's kind heart. Through all the years, all the changes, Kate and Yates remained each other's constants. They still found time to sit together in the evenings, talking or reading or simply being in each other's presence. They celebrated anniversaries and birthdays, weathered illnesses and injuries, supported each other through the challenges that life inevitably brought. On their 20th anniversary, Yates took Kate back to the cabin in the mountains. They had kept it maintained over the years, using it occasionally when they needed a retreat from the busy ranch. It looked exactly the same, a little time-worn but still solid. "You remember that first night?" Yates asked as they stood in front of the fireplace. "When I told you that you had everything you needed, I remember thinking you were insane. I had nothing. But you did. You had yourself. That was always enough." Kate turned to her husband, this man who had saved her life and then spent 20 years making that life worth living. His hair was starting to gray at the temples and there were lines around his eyes, but to her, he was just as handsome as the day he pulled her from the snow. "I had more than that." I had you. Even before I knew it, I had you." They spent the weekend at the cabin, recapturing some of the magic of those early days. They hiked to the claim, long since played out but still holding memories. They cooked simple meals and read by firelight and made love like they were young newlyweds again. "I would do it all over again," Kate said on their last morning before heading back to Palisade. "Every moment, every struggle, every joy, all of it exactly the same, because it led me to you." "Same here. Even the hard parts were worth it to have this life with you." They returned to the ranch and their family, carrying the renewed connection with them. The years continued to unfold, bringing more grandchildren, new ventures, the inevitable losses that came with getting older. But through it all, Kate and Yates faced everything together, just as they had promised. When Kate was 55, sitting on her porch surrounded by 6 grandchildren while Yates argued with Thomas about rotating pastures, she took a moment to reflect on her life. She thought about that terrified 22-year-old woman who had been left to die in the snow, who thought she had nothing and no future. That woman would never have believed she could have all this. The sprawling ranch, the children and grandchildren who filled every corner with noise and love, the husband who still made her heart race after 35 years. The respect of her community, the security of knowing she could take care of herself and her family. The simple joy of watching the sunset paint the mountains gold. Yates caught her staring and came over, settling into the rocking chair beside hers. He took her hand, his grip still strong despite the arthritis that plagued him now. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "Everything. How lucky I am, how grateful. I am the lucky one. We both are." They sat in comfortable silence, watching their family, listening to the sounds of the ranch. Kate squeezed Yates's hand. "You were right, you know, that first day when you told me I had everything I needed. I did not believe you, but you were absolutely right. I had the strength to survive and the courage to try again. And I had you, even though I did not know it yet. You were right all along." Yates brought her hand to his lips, kissing it gently. "We had each other. That was all we ever needed." As the sun set over the Colorado mountains, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Kate Bennett Thornton smiled. She had been left in the snow with nothing, abandoned and alone, but she had survived. She had found love in the most unexpected place, with a kind cowboy who saw her worth when she could not see it herself. Together, they had built a life that exceeded every dream she had ever dared to have. The cowboy had told her she had everything she needed, and he had been absolutely right. Because what she needed most was herself, her own resilience and determination. Everything else, the love and family and success, had grown from that foundation. She had saved herself with Yates's help. And in doing so, she had found not just survival, but a joy so complete it still sometimes took her breath away. The years had been kind to Kate and Yates, giving them a life rich with meaning and connection. As they grew older together, their love only deepened, aged like fine wine into something complex and beautiful. They had started with nothing but each other and built an empire of the heart, measured not in money or land, but in the bonds they had forged and the legacy they would leave behind. And when Kate finally closed her eyes for the last time at the age of 78, surrounded by children and grandchildren and even a few great-grandchildren, it was with Yates holding her hand, just as he had held it that first day in the snow. Her last thought was of gratitude for the life she had been given, for the man who had shown her she was worth saving, for every precious moment of the journey they had taken together. Yates followed her 6 months later, unable to bear a world without his Kate in it. They were buried side by side on a hill overlooking the ranch, under the Colorado sky they had both loved. Their children and grandchildren gathered to remember them, telling stories of their great love and the legacy they had left behind. The ranch continued to thrive under Thomas's care, and Josh's law practice in Denver bore the family name with pride. Sarah's children carried on the tradition of kindness and generosity, and Lucy's fierce spirit inspired everyone who knew her. The story of how Kate and Yates met became family legend, told and retold to each new generation. About the woman who was left in the snow with nothing, and the cowboy who told her she had everything she needed. About how love could bloom even in the harshest conditions. About how two people could save each other and build something beautiful from absolutely nothing. And in the cabin high in the mountains where it all began, now kept by Josh as a family retreat, there was a plaque mounted on the wall. It bore the date February 20, 1878, and a simple inscription. Here, two souls found each other in the snow and changed everything. May all who enter know that love is the only thing we ever truly need. The story of Kate and Yates Thornton lived on, a testament to the power of kindness, the strength of love, and the truth that sometimes losing everything is the first step to finding what really matters. They had started with nothing and ended with everything, proving that the cowboy had been right all along. All anyone really needs is the courage to try again, the strength to endure, and someone to share the journey. Everything else is just details. Their legacy lived on in the family they created, in the ranch that still bore their name, in the community they had helped build, and in the hearts of everyone who heard their story. Kate Bennett had been left to die in a Colorado blizzard, but she had refused to give up. And because of that stubborn determination, because of one kind cowboy with a generous heart, she had found not just survival but a love story for the ages. A love that started in desperate circumstances and grew into something that would outlast them both, inspiring generations to believe in the power of second chances and the truth that real love can conquer anything, even the coldest winter and the darkest despair.